Today we have a very special guest with us. His credits include productions like The Family Stone, Stomp the Yard, The Game Plan, Moonlight, Men of a Certain Age, The Cabin in the Woods, Never Heard, Hostages, Dear Frank, Chicago Fire, Bronx SIU, and Ray Donovan. Listeners of this podcast will know him as Tavon Garris on The Shield. Brian White is here on The Shattered Shield today. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no problem. Today we're here to discuss your character, Tavon Garris, on The Shield. I always like to ask my guests how they got their start, how they first hear about The Shield. So if you can, please give me the story on how you actually first got the role and what your experiences were auditioning for the show.
I first heard about the Shield for the pilot, and I read for Julian, and that was my first, which ended up going to Michael Jace, and that was my first exposure to the script, and it was called The Barn at the time. It wasn't called The Shield yet, and I just thought it was one of the coolest cop shows I had seen since Hill Street Blues. I grew up on a Hawk in Boston,
Yeah.
Spencer Fire, with Robert Urich and Avery Brooks, and I always wanted to. I was a huge fan of Avery Brooks because he was the first guy that looked like me, other than Denzel on St. Elsewhere, that I saw on TV that I really idolized. I idolized those two. So when The Barn came out, I was like, let me go in for this. And it was I didn't end up getting Michael Jace's role, and I got called in when they were casting Tavon, and there were about 500 guys there for the audition.
Wow,
and literally,
that's crazy.
I saw Mekhi Phifer and Lorenz Tate in the audition room, and I called she was my girlfriend then, and was my now wife, and said, "There's no way in heck I'm going to get this job. There's too many guys here. It's a huge cattle call. There's like huge people that I'm a fan of." And I went in and I read with Michael Chiklis and Davis Guggenheim. I will never forget it. And I gave my first read, and then Michael came out in the hall with me, and I came in there with it was the scene where Tavon's undercover.
Yeah.
And it's actually in the show. I'm wearing like a powder blue tracksuit. I don't know what episode it is.
That was
the
Coyotes.
audition. Yeah, it was Coyotes. And I came in with a do-rag and a fake. I had like tinfoil on my tooth to make it like silver cap. It was just really bad. And I went in there and played up the street side, and Michael came out with me and goes, "That was the worst audition I've ever seen in my life." He said, "But I like you. You seem like the character. So if you can come in and do it again as yourself and take out the tinfoil from your mouth and take off your do-rag and try it again." And I did it again and came in and took his direction and took Davis's direction. And as soon as we finished, they opened up the door and said, "Everybody else can go home."
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
That included all the rest of those guys, and I got the role right there. And I enrolled myself in acting classes the next morning. Even probably the best acting classes I've ever had was my time on The Shield. I enrolled in classes right after that.
Did you, coming up to that point, did you have any experience with being a cop on TV, or is that your first run?
My very first run, I had just really started acting. I was a professional athlete before, so I had done stuff like The Best Man, where I played a football player.
Mm-hmm.
I was Morris Chestnut's teammate on the Giants, which I was very familiar with for playing for the Patriots. And then I went to a sitcom where I played a dentist. I had no experience doing that. And then right after the sitcom, I got the Shield. And I was terrified because they had just won a Golden Globe and had gotten all those accolades, which is, Michael Chiklis being from Boston, he was familiar with me because he was a friendly with and a fan of my dad.
Yeah.
And we had some instant chemistry right there. And he took me under his wing, as the rest of the guys on the show did. And I jumped in classes, and I went with a guy named Jesse Terrero, who was the police detective trainer. He was a real detective off duty that would take us out to the gun range, ride-alongs, et cetera, and it was pretty much between classes, Michael, and Jesse that got me ready for that role.
Okay, so this is actually a really big burning question that we get a lot from people. You started on Coyotes, and then you went from season 2 into 3, but it seems like, now this might be a question for the writers, I'm aware, But I want to see if you had any insight on how long your tenure was going to be on that show, because Tavon, he's so involved in what they're doing. He's really getting along with Vic, and then he has this fight with Shane, and you're gone for 8 episodes before we see you again. What did they sign you to? Like, what were the specifics behind your time on the show?
It's been kind of like the tale of my career. It's always based on performance, based on if people like you. So it starts out always being, it could just be one episode.
Okay.
It's a bridge character. They had to get rid of Terry. They had to have somebody in between Terry. And Tavon was that guy. If you do a good job, I'm a new actor. I'm green. I don't have enough experience. If it works, it's going to get to keep working. But they don't have it all planned out.
Right.
Similar to my experience on Ray Donovan or Scandal or Chicago Fire, all exactly the same thing. They say it could be one episode, it could be 13 when you're coming in the door, and it's going to be based on you, but it's a big opportunity, so you're gung ho to do it. And The Shield was my first time at the dance in that type of role. And we came in, we shot Coyotes, and unlike my audition, they loved it. And then we're trying to figure out what you're going to do with the art. And, as we go through the story, I mean, there's just so much. The strike team is such a unit. They got to figure out. Tavon becomes more and more and more a threat the more he fits in.
Right.
And so by that time, they needed to take a break to be able to come back to it. And they always knew, and they were very communicative to me when they handed me. I remember the day that Aceveda had to read Benito had to read the episode where he had to get raped, or the day I have to die. You have 3 producers standing outside with you trying to explain to you what's going on, because we didn't find out anything until we arrived at the table read.
I see.
So the first time you read it is the time you read it, and I read Tavon's going through the windshield, and Kurt Sutter and Scott and Sean were like, "You're not dying. You're not dying.
Yeah.
We got to take a beat and reset on that storyline, deal with some other storylines, and we'll circle back to it." They didn't know exactly how, but that's where those episodes go when they're trying to figure out what's the best way to jump the shark and to get back to the storylines that they enjoy writing.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. In season 2, actually in the finale, and this is another one of the burning questions we get from a lot of people. Tavon does a little Russian roulette game with a character named Lops, and it's part of an investigation where they're trying to find shooters. And he pulls the bullet out of the gun, but he's really basically trying to trick this guy into thinking he's doing Russian roulette. And then when he first comes in, he kind of roughs up a suspect. So the question becomes, he was getting closer to Vic. He was starting to understand how things were working. Do you think, in your opinion, that Tavon would have went full-on dirty cop?
No. I think Tavon was always the good guy. And I think at that point in the game, he understood that, if you're not making the coach or the boss happy, you're not even going to be on the team anymore.
Okay.
So at that point, he wanted to take down Lops the way Vic wanted to take down Lops, or in a way that would impress Vic. And I think it was an opportunity that he took advantage of, Tavon being a smart, clean guy, realizing if you're going to play Russian roulette and take the bullet out, it's a no-lose situation with Vic. He's only going to be impressed that you might play Russian roulette, even though you're not playing it in that moment. So I think that was one of the few moments in which Tavon's chess game outplayed Vic Mackey's chess game.
Okay, I like that. Do you think he ever would have replaced Shane as Vic's number 1?
Never. He's not dirty enough. And at the end of the day, Vic is looking for that guy that will have his back no matter what the circumstances are. And that's not Tavon.
Okay. Yeah. See, I think the confusion comes with the way that Chiklis played that scene. He absolutely looks like he would be able to mold him, but you think that Tavon would hold strong. That's great. I always kind of got that vibe too.
I think that was the eye opener. I think that scene I always looked at, and I remember talking about it with Chicky on the day, because I have big hands and I was able to manipulate the gun.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Wow." He's like, "We can actually put that on camera as a moment that Chicky's gonna be impressed by Tavon." And it's impressed by a skill that feels dirty, but it's just a skill, whether you use it or not. But in Tavon's mind, it's removing the bullet.
Yeah.
In Vic's mind, it's the coldness of being able to play Russian roulette, and to each person it represents a different thing that doesn't necessarily equal each other.
Sure.
And I think that is where in my opinion, Tavon gets to play Vic, but in everybody else's opinion, Tavon proves his mettle to Vic.
Okay. So the biggest part I would say, or the biggest story arc you have, is the one with Shane. And as soon as you get in there, he's causing friction with Tavon almost instantly. It's a mix of jealousy and what we know for him, a need for acceptance and racism, all kinds of different things. How was it working with Walton Goggins? And did you ever, like when you guys were filming, because you sold me, when you were filming, did you ever feel like any tension when you're doing that? Or how did that all go?
Michael and I are friends to this day. Kenny Johnson and I are friends to this day. Walton Goggins and I are friends to this day. But while we were shooting, the person that I was closest with was Walton. We were meeting, as soon as I came in, offset, we'd grab lunch, grab coffee. We were trying to produce stuff. He had introduced me to Ray McKinnon, the partner he won an Oscar with.
Yeah.
I loved Walton. I just tremendously respected him as a person and actor. He's a sweetheart of a man and of a human being. And I remember shooting that scene. He couldn't look at me that day because we both knew the place we had to go.
We're talking about the fight scene, right?
The fight scene.
Yep.
That day when we came in, he just wouldn't look at me in the eye. He gave me a big hug and he said, "I'll talk to you out later." And, we had lunch the day before, talking about some other stuff. But on that particular day, he had to go where he had to go. I'm sure similar to when he was shooting his scenes with Jamie Foxx many years later in Django. That's a horrible character. And Walt is a professional and goes as deep as anybody, but he has the ability to break character for those 2 seconds when you're coming into set as a human being and give you a hug, give you some love, even though he can't look at you.
Yeah.
But no, there was never any animosity. There was always love and respect. And he is one of the actors I revere and admire and love the most of all in the business because of his ability to play, and he's done both sides. He's done great, likable characters and insidious, wicked characters,
right.
But he does them both with the most professionalism and craft involved without making the human side of the actor feel objectified or anything negative. He's just awesome at what he does.
Did you guys get any actual injuries from that fight scene? Because it looks pretty rough.
Yeah, we did. We nothing that sustained, but it was 100% real, and we only were able to do one take because it was real.
Yeah.
That wasn't a set. That was a local apartment. We broke their TV. We broke their wall. We broke their oven door. We broke their refrigerator door, and we broke their front door. So all of those things had to be fixed and paid for by the Shield because everything you saw break on camera was a real broken problem that they then had to come in and expand.
Okay, so I want to put that one to bed. So to end any kind of rumor, you really did put him through a wall, right?
I've never had a stunt double in any scene and anything I've ever done in 20 years, and that was the first time that we ever got to go full.
Yeah.
And Walt wanted to go, and we were only able to do one take of that entire scene because the set was destroyed. There was no way to do a second take after we were done. So that was it.
Right. Okay. So if you kept up with the story, which it seems like you did, you'd know that Lem pretty much becomes, maybe not so much when you were on it, but later on in the show, he becomes like the heart of the team. And when they come back to see Tavon in the hospital, they got to get him to lie to Tavon about him hitting Mara. People are giving Lem a pass. It's, he's the good guy. He's all this. What's your take on that character? And do you think he deserves the rep he gets as being a good guy, or is he just as bad as the rest of them?
He's absolutely just as bad as the rest of them. And that's the genius of Kenny Johnson.
Yeah.
And the way he was able to skate out of that, it has a lot to do with why he's probably on SWAT now. He's like one of the most beloved, lovable, detectives in TV history because of the way he's able to be a bad guy like Tony Soprano and be lovable.
Yes.
You love Lem more than Chick at the end. You're kind of mad at Chick, but you're never mad at Lem, and you should be because he's the one that's doing the most salt. And kind of like the way the Sopranos ended, you just want this man and his family to be okay, and you always want Lem to be okay because of the kind of guy that resonates from Kenny Johnson, and that's the kind of guy that Kenny Johnson is. He's one of my dearest friends. I played in 10 years of basketball leagues with him and worked with him, et cetera, et cetera. I just really like that guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of Lem. You know, he was able to play both sides and get neither side upset with him.
Thank you for saying that, because you're the only person who I found that will say that he's as bad as the other guys. I appreciate that.
I mean, the liar that makes the good guy believe the distruth or the lie is the worst guy of all, and that's
Yeah.
Lem.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's not the one we blame ever. So that's skill right there by Kenny Johnson.
So Tavon comes back in season 7 for Animal Control, and I was curious how all that came about. And did you notice any difference in the feel that the show was shot and done? Because you know how a lot of times like shows they're a different TV series from they were from the first season than they are, in season 7 or something. So did you feel any changes in production when you had gotten back?
I don't believe Ron was there anymore, which is our cinematographer for Ambitions. He was the cinematographer for the first 7 seasons, and I believe this was season 8. So this is when Ron was gone. So yes, I do believe the look was vastly different. Because you're removing Ron. And that came out, they came about. For years, they were telling me there was even going to be a movie at one point after the show ended. So they're very communicative as far as the producers, and they had reached out, and it was Scott Brazil. I was trying to do Playmakers at the time, and he reached out saying, it's unsettled. We really want to finish this Tavon storyline because they felt like being lied to wouldn't be the end of Tavon. He's too good at what he does to just be lied to.
Right.
He's got to get some kind of vengeance, and that's where it started. In a conversation between, as far as me being aware of it. I'm sure they had many conversations privately before they reached out to me. But they said, we're thinking about trying to resolve this so it sits well with all of us as well. And I got the opportunity to come back for 8.
This is actually kind of a generic question I've got for you, but I feel like it's important. As an actor, what do you think is your biggest takeaway from working on that show?
What I learned from The Shield is why and how the best become and remain the best. That was, to this day, the highest functioning set I've ever been on. Meaning, if we were supposed to shoot something at 1 o'clock, it started at 1 o'clock. If we were supposed to end at 2 o'clock, it ended at 2 o'clock, if not earlier. And that's a testament to the producers, the line producers, the associate producers that do all the scheduling and location scouting, down to the actors being prepared and everybody being ready to shoot their scenes when they come in. I've never been involved with a production that was so efficient, and that there was so much joy.
Why do you think that was?
I think it's because of Kurt Sutter and Scott Brazil and Sean Ryan and Michael Chiklis. And I think that the tone starts with number 1 on the call sheet. And Michael is the consummate professional. I mean, he is an actor's actor, but he's ready to direct. He's ready to produce. He doesn't step on anybody's toes, even though he's ready to do those 2 things, which is it's a whole other conversation. But there's lots of great actors that are ready to produce and try to do that on a set, and it slows things down. But Michael never did that. He let the producers produce, but he was one of those actors that just moved seamlessly throughout his day, was always happy, made everybody else around him happy. The set felt fun, even though we were dealing with heavy. A lot of sets feel sad if you're dealing with heavy material. This one never did. It was a combination of things that created this lightning in a bottle that we called The Shield. And it was, to this day, I've been a part of a lot of great productions with a lot of great producers and great talent, but I've never seen all the pieces come together on a set like that particular set did. And I think that's the why. It was just magic.
Where does Tavon rank for you as a character in your career?
One of the best. I had some of the most fun playing him. I'm an athletic guy. I'm a puzzle solver. I'm competitive. I consider myself an alpha male. I have both dark and light in me. And I think, this is one of the few roles where you check all of those boxes and there's even more room to grow.
Yeah.
And so I just had the most fun challenging myself from preparing for fist fights to going to the gun range to ride-alongs with cops to reading the scenes and just really liking what was on the page with that particular show and role.
Okay. It's the last question I got for you, but it's kind of a two-part. Uh, if Sean Ryan were to make some sort of follow-up, whether it be like a movie or another series, first part of the question is, would you be interested in reprising the role? And the second piece, where do you think Tavon is now 10 years after the finale of that show?
The first answer is easy. Anytime that I hear from anybody from the Shield, I am wide open and interested to working with them because of the simple fact that I know that they care about their craft, that they're quality people, and that anything they're working on is going to be worth the time and effort. So
Right.
yes, and more yes. As far as where Tavon is right now, he's an upwardly mobile guy, and I would think that Tavon would no longer be a politician. He's no longer be a cop. He's probably a politician.
Okay, interesting. I like that.
Got that together with like Ambitions. In Ambitions, my character's the mayor of Atlanta.
Right.
Tavon was the kind of guy that could have moved from LA to Atlanta and become the mayor between then and now.
It'd be fun to see him play off Aceveda too.
He's Aceveda's boss now.
All right, Brian. Thank you so much for doing this. If you want to find Brian, he's at actor Brian White on Twitter. Where can we find you now? Because I know you're a busy guy. I'd like to hear what you got going on.
Absolutely. I am shooting Ambitions for the prolific producer Will Packer and our executive producer Oprah Winfrey. That'll be out June 19th on the OWN network. Currently, you can catch me on Bronx SIU. We are Emmy nominated 3 times over. That's on Amazon and UMC. At Watch UMC is their handle. And Monogamy season 2 and 3 is coming out starting in September.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.